It's amazing. Steve Jobs bankrupted billions of smartphone companies worldwide in just 1 year. Perhaps you may be surprised, but that's the fact. Please give me a subscription, and now I'll tell you how all of this is done. When Steve Jobs took out an iPhone that was both a tablet and a mobile phone, the leader of the mobile phone market, BlackBerry, instantly overshadowed. No one had ever imagined that a phone could still grow like this before, because compared to the sound in front of them, the latest BlackBerry phone is simply an electronic antique. BlackBerry CEO Mike broke out in a cold sweat on the spot because the new generation of BlackBerry was about to be released. This was originally a product buried to capture half of the market share in the mobile phone market, but unfortunately Apple stumbled upon the door and, with just one press conference, caused BlackBerry's stock price to plummet. Apple quickly rose and surpassed industry leader BlackBerry in just a few days, ultimately leading BlackBerry from 45% of the market share to 0%, completely disappearing from the historical stage. The founders of the BlackBerry phone, Mike and Doug, originally ran a technology company that made electrical appliances and circuit board components. The two of them would go to the sales company every day to promote their invented phone called Palm Treasure. It can be put in a pocket. Not only can you send and receive emails and text messages anytime and anywhere, but also make phone calls, which is definitely a must-have for business people. Mike said they were all using the most advanced technology from 1999, and he also talked a lot about their black technology. Jim, who can accommodate to people, already knew nothing about technology and said it was the stupidest invention he had ever seen. No one could even send emails on their phone. After finishing speaking, he got up and left. Before leaving, he even mocked the names of the treasures in their hands for being too unpleasant. However, Jim was fired by the company that day. When he finished tidying up the office and sat down, he saw the product pictures left by Mike and the other two at his place. So the next day, Jim turned around and found the other two, saying that he wanted to invest $25,000 as CEO to help them promote this product, because their marketing methods were too poor and no one would buy it. However, when he heard that his condition was to take half of the company's shares, Mike's partnership became very angry, saying that they had a huge business of 16 million yuan in their hands. The American robotics company USR just bought a batch of their equipment, but USR not only didn't give them a penny, but also took more than half of the samples. Jim knew that Mike and his team must have been deceived, because small workshops like them only needed to delay payment to survive until they went bankrupt, so they didn't have to pay a penny. Mike also understood that what Jim was saying was very likely, so that night Mike contacted USS and asked them to quickly settle the payment or issue a receipt. But as Jim had anticipated, USR planned not to give a penny. Not only that, but we also need to cancel this order because their batch of goods has quality issues. Mike lost all his money this time, and USR was indeed a poster. Now they had to let Jim get caught. Perhaps only professional salespeople like him could save their company. But Doug felt that Jim had too much appetite and was completely a shark. Mike said that pirates are afraid of sharks. Finally, after bargaining, Jim obtained 33 of the shares for 125,000 yuan. Mike became the CEO together, and Jim was also straightforward. He didn't hesitate to agree on the spot. At this moment, no one would have anticipated Jim's arrival, which would turn this small workshop that had bullied to the ground by the big factory into a global corporation. The next day, as soon as Jim got to work, he found out that the company owed 1.6 million yuan in debt to the bank due to the cat business. Jim quickly called USR to negotiate, but as soon as he picked up the phone, it was noisy. As long as an employee was online, the phone signal would be affected and make noise. Jim reported his anger directly. "Get off the internet." Mike was stunned in an instant. It turned out that when he was affected by phone calls, he only dared to negotiate with his employees to cut off the internet in a friendly manner. Employees also casually fish at work every day. Only Mike was busy, while Jim was an iron-blooded tyrant with a completely different management style. Negotiating with USR was also quite tough. He said, "I can continue to supply the cat's order of 1.6 million yuan as long as you only pay 2.5 million yuan. Otherwise, I will sell it to your competitor company at a lower price." Jim realized that he had found the right person, which is what negotiations are called. USR finally let go and said that as long as Mike can give them the patent for Palm Treasure, they will accept this batch of cats. Because USR phones have been developed for a year, but networking technology has never been able to break through. Upon hearing this, Jim hung up the phone decisively. It seemed that the treasure in his hand was the real thing that could make money, but Mike had not even made a prototype at the moment. Jim asked him to make a prototype by tomorrow, no matter what method he used, no matter how hasty it was. At this moment, a person who almost missed the opportunity to become a millionaire appeared. It turned out that the company had been unable to pay wages for 3 months due to losses from the U.S. business.
I can fix this.
Jim had to go to the bank to borrow money and pay his employees every 2 weeks. In order to prevent the company from going bankrupt, they must seize every second. Although Mike, a perfectionist, feels that making a makeshift product is inhumane, he has no choice in the face of life or death. He and Doug slept through a wave of supermarkets overnight, buying all kinds of small electronic products. The circuit board of the game console, the keyboard of the remote control, the screen of the calculator, and the scroll wheel of the mouse were used as selection keys. The outer shell of the computer was used as the phone case, and to know, 5 batteries were soldered on. A functional phone was born, but it is such a crude product that has caused a collective climax among all mobile phone users, completely ending the era of pagers and mobile phones with just one function for sending and receiving emails and text messages. Jim took Mike to the telecommunications company for negotiations, and on the way, Mike found out that Jim had already gambled everything when he came to their company. He did not resign from the previous company, but offended the leader and was fired. Now, in order to pay his salary, he has to bear a huge loan and is at a loss. He's currently in a back-to-back battle, but just before presenting to the phone company, Mike fell off the chain. Due to being too nervous, he left the prototype on the car. Jim had to grit his teeth and go to the conference room to deal with a phone company. He said that before, the telephone company could only make money through time, but now they have reinvented the telephone to the internet and can connect and can use traffic to send emails. The telephone company can also make traffic money. The phone company owner thinks this is a fantasy. People all over the world want this kind of phone that can connect to the internet, but they have been developing it for more than half a year. However, no matter how they develop it, only 11 phones can connect to the internet at most. He said Jim may have been fooled by technical tricks and limp. Just as Jim began to suspect that he had been scammed, Mike, a savvy person, he arrived in time and explained to them why more phones couldn't be connected to the internet, because all phones would constantly ask the network server if they had received emails when accessing the network. This repetitive and large amount of useless information caused the network server to be overloaded, making it impossible for more phones to connect to the internet. Therefore, they used a giant server to receive emails. When the server receives the email, it packages and sends it to the phone through the network. This process only takes half a second to complete, and the traffic used in a month is not as much as that of a fixed phone. A server can support 500,000 mobile connected phones simultaneously. The company boss instantly understood what was going on, and then Mike showed his prototype. The boss asked him what this thing was called. Jim looked at the remaining BlackBerry paper in Mike's clothes and casually named it BlackBerry. Since then, mobile phones have entered the internet era. They can not only make phone calls and send SMS messages, but also send emails, read the web page, and chat about QQ with more and more functions. In 2003, they also developed the function of sending text messages without charge. As long as BlackBerry phones send text messages to each other, they can send them over the internet without paying a dime to the communication operators. In addition, the content of the text messages is absolutely confidential, and BlackBerry itself can find out. Like Apple's current SMS function, this technology has led to a continuous surge in sales of BlackBerry phones. However, due to the popularity of BlackBerry phones, it has taken away USRS phone business. Now USR is angry and has sent someone to Jim to maliciously acquire BlackBerry. Because USRS market value is 42 billion, BlackBerry is only 2.4 billion at this time. Even if it cannot be acquired, it will cause various troubles BlackBerry, and it is impossible to continue selling phones. Now BlackBerry must quickly sell more products to make its size large enough to avoid being acquired. But the internet can only connect up to 500,000 mobile phones. Jim asked Mike, is it possible to connect more phones to the internet? Mike said it's possible as long as the amount of transmitted information is compressed, but these employees can't do it. They just need to poach Google people. So Jim began to go to various rival companies to poach people, and when he spoke, he asked the technical supervisor how much it would cost to switch jobs. He was so scared that the supervisor quickly closed the door and plugged the internet cable and prevented being monitored by the boss. Upon hearing this conversation, Jim immediately stated that he would not leave Google. So he started throwing money at people for $1 million and $2 million and $3 million. Seeing that the supervisor remained indifferent, the CEO directly raised the price to $10 million, which is a condition that no one can refuse. However, the supervisor knew that Jim couldn't come up with such a lot of money. He didn't expect Jim to directly sell a 1 million share contract, pay his salary with stock options, and ask him to write the time as the BlackBerry stock price of $1. At this time, the BlackBerry stock price had already reached $13, which means that the value of this 1 million share contract is $13 million. Obviously, this fraudulent method is illegal, but no one can resist the temptation of such a huge salary. Jim doesn't care whether it's illegal or not. Now he must dig up the people he needs in order for the company to survive. Then Jim used the same trick and went to Nokia, Intel, and Microsoft to recruit of the top technology talents in Silicon Valley, and also poached the bosses of the technicians. Jim risked going to jail for minutes just to connect more phones and sell more phones to avoid the company being acquired. Subsequently, Jim requested the sales team to sell 1.3 million BlackBerries within 7 days. The salespeople thought the CEO was joking that in order to sell so many units in a short period of time, they had to come up with a trick. Jim let the salespeople dress up as elite tycoons, go to wealthy entertainment venues all over the country, and then laugh loudly at BlackBerry phones, making everyone feel that they are something used by the upper class. Everyone on his side unconsciously turned to the phone held by the salespeople. When someone approached to inquire, they introduced BlackBerry's email sending and receiving function to them. In just a few days, BlackBerry phones sold 1 million units, but due to a surge in user numbers, network servers couldn't handle it. 10 of users couldn't connect to the network, nor could they use email sending and receiving functions. A large number of user complaints even made it to the news, and BlackBerry's reputation plummeted. Despite the RD team's efforts to compress information, they couldn't break through the limitations of the G networks. Several tens of millions of invited tech experts urgently discussed a solution to change the signal transmission program of the signal tower, which enabled 2 million mobile phones to connect to the internet. But when Mike returned to the company with this plan, he found that no one was executing it at all. All the employees were preparing for the movie party every Friday, and they were used to being lazy. Fortunately, Jim met Charles, the irritable boss of a tech guru, while digging people in Silicon Valley. This person had the same temper as him, and no one in the company dared to provoke him. So Jim easily poached Charles and became the chief operating officer of BlackBerry. Mike knew that no one was listening to him, so he had to find Charles to implement the plan to modify the signal tower program. I haven't seen his skilled employees before, but they still want to talk back and refuse to use him.
If that work is not done at a pace that I expect, you'll be fired. And I'll keep firing until this room is full of men and not little boys playing with their little penises.
After witnessing Charles' ruthlessness, all the employees became much more obedient. They worked overtime obediently until late at night. When Doug returned to see the movie night canceled and everyone was working, he realized that the company had changed. He found Mike Seri, but Mike said it was not wrong because time is money and they must complete the task first. It was under the tyrannical management that the sales of BlackBerry phones reached 1 million units, and the problem of not being able to connect all phones to the internet was solved by changing the signal tower program. Now USR, which wants to acquire BlackBerry, is completely unable to make any moves. By 2007, BlackBerry had already occupied 30% of the North American market share. When the next generation of BlackBerries is released, their market share will reach 50%. Now BlackBerry has become an absolute low in the mobile phone market, but with the appearance of a person named Steve Jobs, it has directly transformed the top in the industry to the bottom. When they saw the launch event of the iPhone was invincible, but Mike didn't believe in evil, saying that phones without keyboards couldn't be called phones. They were garbage. He quickly asked employees to add a touchscreen function to the new generation BlackBerry before Friday. But in just a few days, They could only create a touch function similar to a mouse. Mike helplessly introduced this phone to the bosses of the cooperating phone companies, but the boss directly asked Mike if he had watched Apple's press conference. Mike, in order to cover up his embarrassment, had to forcefully refute it, saying that abandoning the physical keyboard was very foolish. Their BlackBerry keyboard could definitely make users love it, but the boss is also a mobile phone user. Obviously, Apple's functions are more powerful. Not only can it be fully touched, but it also has an unprecedented app store. The bosses feel that they can no longer collaborate with BlackBerry this time, and they need to find Apple to collaborate with. Mike is completely panicked. In a hurry, he casually fabricated a lie, saying that BlackBerry was developing a better product than Apple, which not also retained a full touch screen, but also retained a physical keyboard, and would be released soon. This product belongs to top secret joint CEO Jim, who did not let them say it, which gave the bosses a glimmer of hope. But in fact, Mike has no clue and doesn't know how to explain to the employees how to this product. Doug helped by saying that we wanted to make a phone with the same screen as Apple, but still retaining the BlackBerry button function. However, Mike forced us to vent his anger and scolded him for being foolish. If we want to make a new generation of products in such a short time, the only way is to find Chinese OEM. But Mike didn't believe in the quality of Chinese manufacturing, rejected this proposal. And it was not until Apple's market value exceeded that they hastily compromised and decided to use Chinese contract manufacturing. And at this point, Jim, who holds onto the top position in the industry, has started to freely acquire ice hockey teams everywhere, completely unaware of what the release of the Apple generation really means. It was until Jim heard the company say that BlackBerry would become a transitional product before people sold Apple that he realized the seriousness of the problem. But Mike still concealed the reality from Jim, saying that Apple was not afraid at all and had no need to worry about BlackBerry's market share. But Jim is not a fool. He quickly investigated what Apple was up to and why a contract phone subsidized by telecom operators dared to sell for $500 per unit. This will be the most expensive phone in the world. But when he found out that Apple had launched the App Store, Jim realized that they wanted to sell traffic, just like how they had eliminated the big phone in the past. BlackBerry is about to be eradicated by Apple, and there are multiple disasters. His previous fraud in the 17 rights contract was also discovered by the China Securities Regulatory Commission. Faced with scrutiny, he could only choose not to answer the phone and rush to find the CEO of Apple to inquire about the possibility of cooperation. But the CEO had already gone on vacation. In the end, Jim still didn't stop him at the airport. At this time, the people from the China Securities Regulatory Commission also found Mike. When they found that the situation could not be concealed, Mike left the blame entirely on the joint CEO, Jim. It was Jim who forged stock option contracts and recruited a large number of technical engineers. In order to prevent the China Securities Regulatory Commission from harassing their company anymore, Mike had to deceive Jim back to the company and plead guilty. But Jim was not imprisoned because he had already blocked evidence of stock option fraud in BlackBerry servers in Waterloo, and the Securities and Futures Commission had no way to take him. By 2008, BlackBerry had finally developed exquisite phones, but unfortunately it was too late, and all of these urgently produced phones were returned due to program errors and could not be used. At this time, the market had already been divided among other brands. Originally, BlackBerry had imitated Apple early on and was able to keep up with the new era of smartphones. However, due to Mike's unwillingness to admit reality, it led to BlackBerry falling from the pedestal, with a market share of 45 directly reduced to zero, completely disappearing from the historical stage. Doug, who was regarded as a fool throughout the entire process, realized the changes in the BlackBerry company early on. In 2007, during BlackBerry's peak, he sold his stock and withdrew from the company. Now he is one of the wealthiest people in the world. Thank you for watching. Please give me a subscription like. God bless you. Thank you. See you in the next movie.